So anytime a person is in the zone or in flow state, there's not a whole lot of conscious thought happening. We call it caveman golf. When you play your best golf, it's see target, see ball, hit ball. And in order for you to get there more often is where you use psychomuscular training to enter into that state.
It's like an aggressive calm. Picture like a sniper in the heat of the battle. There's shots going on and they're totally on their target. Again, it's a target focus. It's on that target every single time, and they're just boom, boom. That's all they're doing, but they're totally focused on the target, not with all the chaos that's going around.
Welcome to The Golf Parent, where you get access to the best minds in junior golf.
Bo, Shannon, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to have you guys on.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We're excited.
Yeah, we're excited as well, and love, being able to reach kids and parents all in one shot. This is awesome.
Yeah, well, that's definitely the mission here. So let's start at, I guess, kind of the most important aspect. I'm curious, what would you guys say is a percentage of how much of golf is mental and how much of it is actually like technical or physical?
Oh man, that is a loaded question because it really depends on the golfer or the player. And what I mean is, depending on the situation, you're going to be more mental than anything. We could look at the PGA golfer. This putt is worth $1 million.
You think a lot more mental.
Versus I'm going to go play with my buddies, where it's not as mental necessarily. But, all your top coaches and athletes, they're going to say it's 90% mental, 10% physical. It may even be 25% physical and 75% mental. But the other question is, okay, so if it is 90% mental and 10% physical, why would we spend 100% of the time on only 10% of the game? So that's a definite loaded question. And it also depends, is it tournament play? Is it, all those other things that really, puts that barometer or the thermometer, so to speak, on how much is mental and physical.
So many variables. Okay, so let's all agree then that it is proportionately more mental than it is physical. I think we can agree on that. So you guys are all about being able to teach people to get into the zone. And this is fascinating because it's like, this seems to be this elusive journey for so many athletes is, can you actually get into the zone? Can you actually turn on a switch and be able to dial in? And if so, why is it everybody not do it? But you guys seem to have created a system and actually kind of crack the code to say, yeah, you actually can get into the zone at will. And not only that, but here's an actual system to do that. How is that possible?
I think I'll share this because everybody's going to be thinking it's not possible. And I was one of those people when I first met Shannon. And so to kind of give some context for everybody, when Shannon and I met back in 2018, we were at a dinner one night and I was just casually having a conversation with him. We met through church and I wanted to get to know him a little bit more. And doing that conversation at dinner just totally took a side tangent, whatever you want to call it. And I was just curious. I was like, what do you do? And he kind of just out of the blue randomly said, I'm general manager at Gold Gym, but like I was also a speed skating coach. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. How did that go? Like, what was your record or whatever? And he said, I was the, U.S. national team manager for the inline speed skating team. I was like, well, that's really cool. So like, how'd you do? And he said, well, I coached 142 national champions, 8 world champions, 2 Olympic medalists. And I'm like, whoa, that's like Hall of Fame resume. So how did you do it? And the next thing he says, well, if you really want to know, the key for me as a coach was not only did I do it myself because he was a national record and national champion himself, but he said I was able to get my speed skaters trick their bodies into the zone. And I laughed. And I said, you're full of it. And I said, please, I don't mean any disrespect, but you need to understand from my perspective what I walked away from. Because in 2016, I stepped away from the game of golf for good. Shut down my golf school, very successful golf school. We were averaging 4.7 shots dropped in 6 months. In Golf Tech, they kind of pride themselves on 7 strokes annually. So like we're doing a little bit better than industry average at the time, but it was the golfers that, kept coming to me that were saying like, why is it that I start terribly and I do great on the back, or vice versa? Why is it I get to this one hole and I keep hitting this in the water or whatever, right? And so that's why I stepped away. And when Shannon shared that he could get people into the zone, I didn't believe him at first. And I said, I don't doubt that it works for speed skating, but I have some serious doubts that it worked for the game of golf, because we all are in agreement that golf is the hardest sport in the world. Like we've heard countless stories of former athletes, even like Hall of Fame athletes, making the switch after retirement playing golf, and they find it super difficult. And I said, Shannon, I don't think your system will work for golf, but you got my interest picked just enough. I said, I'm a perfect test subject to see if this will work. And I said, here's why. I haven't touched a club in 2 years. And if what you're sharing with me is true, and if it can work, then I'm going to go see if it's even worth pursuing. And so this is what I did. I went out the next 6 months, and I didn't physically practice. I didn't go do range time. I didn't take lessons, didn't do any of that. I went straight to the first tee, didn't warm up, cold turkey, hit a few putts, and I go play. 6 out of 8 rounds, I go under par. Took my handicap previously before I shut down my golf school at 2.4 to a plus 1.7, all within about a 6-month time span. And so not only did it work for my game, but then I started sharing with my students. And then I think one of the coolest, it's actually the story that got my wife to go all in on this, because she thought I was crazy after that last round where I went 4 under and I lipped out 3 additional putts for birdies on 9 holes. Because I came home that evening, and we talked about this in a book, and I was so excited. I'm like, I'm opening my golf school. And she's like, whoa, pump the brakes here. We're doing really well in this, new job of yours. I don't think this is smart. And she said, why don't you at least go prove it with somebody? And so the first person I called was the guy that fired me in September of 2016. And the reason why basically I walked away, and I called James and I said, look, you got to see this. And I got him to come back. I broke down everything with him, how it works and everything. And then the very next week, he goes plays in a CGA one-day event here in the Carolina section, and he shoots 76. Now, for those of you that are like 76, well, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is back in 2016, we would go out and do playing lessons together. We'd do many lessons together. And on paper, he should have been shooting in the low 70s. Every time he would go out and play. But back then, when he would play in tournaments, he would shoot between 87 and 92 every time he'd play in a tournament. And that's what drove me crazy. But here he is. I meet him one time, and then the very next week he shoots 76. And I had to do my due diligence. I said, James, what do you think the difference was? He said, honestly, it was everything that you shared about PsychoNeuromuscular Training that made the difference this week in this tournament. And I said, wow, that is awesome. So I know that's a long answer when we talk about getting into the zone, especially more scientific appropriate term is flow state. But that's exactly what our system does. It gets you there more often, more times, and obviously it helps you have more fun.
Incredible story. Now I think you dropped the bomb there. Is it psychomuscular training, psychoneuromuscular training? Shannon, what is it like? What's the secret here? Like, what did you teach? Bo then he taught James. Like, what is this?
Yes, psychoneuromuscular training. And literally, so the funny thing was, I've read a ton of mental books at the time, and I was so there was a huge disconnect for me. And my disconnect was, I was fast as a soccer player when I played in college, but when I was speed skating, my start, I would get last off the line almost every single time. However, when the same people that I was racing, when we would mess around and we'd have shoes on or something like that, I was beating them hands down. And so what I was doing was I'd learned something when I was in college. It was, when I took Psychology 101, Pavlov's dogs, and, we've even worked with psychologists too, and they were blown away, that our system works. But what the scientifically proven was, with that, if you're not familiar with Pavlov's dogs, what happened was a light or a buzzer would happen that would drop food, and then the dog would eat. And then what happened was they would do this over a period of time, and then there was conditioning. It's called classical conditioning. They were conditioning the dog to knowing that when the light or the buzzer would go, that the food was going to drop. So then one time they didn't drop food, and what happened was there was several reactions that the dog would do. One was it would get excited and might turn in circles and do things like that, but then it would also salivate. So there was a physical response to a condition that was a light or thing going on. And so what I was doing was I was conditioning my body, for example, to do the same thing, to trigger, to get into a highly focused mental state for the next thing that I was getting ready to do. And so that was the actual thing that I was showing Bo with the psychoneuromuscular training that you could do. I was triggering my body to get in the zone on demand. And the funny thing was, with all the books that I was doing, that I was actually doing it wrong, but I was doing it the most correct way that you could do it.
Interesting. So when you say you were doing it wrong, it's like you had stumbled upon something that wasn't like classically taught. Let me say it this way. So let me understand. So psychoneuromuscular training. So psycho means like the psychology, so the mind. Neuro is the neurology, so like firing something in your brain. Muscular is obviously your actual kinesthetic, your muscles, and then you're training to think something that then fires into your brain that then activates your muscles. Or visualizing. Is that like, how do you break down? First of all, did you guys make up the word, or is this a term that's established?
Actually, I'll be honest, Bo's the one that actually founded the word, so to speak.
Nice.
Go ahead, Bo.
Yeah. So to kind of give some context to what Shannon just described, it's actually hilarious, but we also got to give credit where credit's due. This is actually a God-given thing that is God-breathed, because hilariously enough, when we were doing the research, we're doing the science, and we're trying to figure out, like, okay, how does science actually fit into this? And when you look at classical conditioning, well, when you come up with a custom trigger to get your body to trigger to kinesthetic mental imagery, which we'll talk about here in a second, that isn't necessarily classical conditioning, because it's not an involuntary response, because an involuntary response would be like you salivate, right? What's interesting with some of the people that we worked with and we partnered with in psychology, but also, I'm going blank. There's another classification out there, but basically to best describe it from the science standpoint, it's a blend of classical conditioning, but also operant conditioning. But how it all comes together is through what we call kinesthetic mental imagery. Now, that's an established practice out there. And the difference between kinesthetic mental imagery is basically like daydreaming. There's not really any emotional connection to it. You're not really feeling your body move or anything like that. Kinesthetic mental imagery is where you're activating all senses, and you're making it as real as you can be, but you're also adding emotion into the equation. The best way to describe this is the very first hallmark study, I think, in kinesthetic mental imagery, we talked about this in the book, was a psychologist, I forgot the other ones, but it was Swinn, Shuinn, and it was a really cool study they did on a downhill skier. Now, what was fascinating is they had electrodes hooked up to those muscles, and they measured him as he went down physically, the course that he was racing. But then they sat him completely still in a chair with the same electrodes hooked up to his muscles, and they found that his muscle activity was firing at an even greater rate, even though he was only doing kinesthetic mental imagery and he's sitting completely still. So that
Interesting.
Created all the other studies that came after it, looking into all the benefits of kinesthetic mental imagery. We talk a lot about those in the book, like you can do rehab with it. I mean, there's so many things you can do. But how kinesthetic mental imagery, just not to kind of go too deep, because I know for all the parents and junior golfers that are listening to this, cool thing about our system is you're just using a blend of what's almost like daydreaming, but you're adding in some emotion and feeling to it. But then you're coming up with a custom trigger, just like, we like to call it, we got to train the dog within you. And, anytime that anybody gets a new puppy, right, you want to train it to sit, right? Well, if you just say sit, that puppy is not going to understand anything that you're saying in that moment, right? Because it hasn't been trained yet, it hasn't been conditioned. But once you start introducing treats to the equation in the formula, so to speak, then after a period of time saying sit and then being introduced a treat, then he knows, hey, here's my reward, right? And so he learns to, anytime a person says sit, I know that I'm supposed to sit. Well, and what we're teaching on psychomuscular training is we're introducing a custom trigger so that our body will start responding to that trigger, which will then create a hyper focus on our target. But then when we bring in CPR, we call it consistent passive reaction, that brings the emotion into the equation. That is the secret sauce, so to speak, in creating hyper focus on the target. But more importantly, it gets our brains from a science standpoint into a state more often to enter into flow state, which we now know with neuroscience over the last 5-7 years. That means our brainwave activity has to have what's called low theta and low alpha waves. All you need to know about that, it just means there's very little conscious thought happening. So anytime a person is in the zone or in flow state, there's not a whole lot of conscious thought happening. We call it caveman golf. When you play your best golf, and this is going to be what everybody needs to relate to, it's called caveman golf. It's see target, see ball, hit ball. And in order for you to get there more often is where you use psychomuscular training to enter into that state.
Love that. Okay. Lots to unpack there. So practically then, as a parent, if we're trying to help our junior golfer or kid or anybody play better golf, are you suggesting that, before the round, that they're basically visualizing every single hole, every shot, adding in an emotional response? So seeing them viscerally, seeing them on the first tee, smelling the grass, feeling the wind on their cheeks, and actually going shot by shot, playing out the round in their head before they play it. And then in addition to that, then you add in some sort of trigger. So would they be like opening up their glove or some sort of something that's unique to them, that then when they go on the course, they're just activating that, taking them into that snapshot. Am I understanding this correct?
Yes, you pretty much nailed it. That's it. And just to kind of help them out, when it comes to mental imagery, we like to say we're going to use 7 senses.
Seven senses. Interesting.
7 senses. Yeah. So you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, I know 5 of them. I don't know about the other 2 of it.
Yeah. So really there's 5, we're activating fullness, like what you said. We want to make it so real with our 5 senses, sight, smell, taste, hear, feel, all that, right? We want it to be that real. What do I mean? Like, okay, well, what's the weather like outside? Is it hot? Well, can you feel the heat? Are you sweating? Is it there? Can you see the blades of grass where your ball is? Can you see the nipple of the ball? When you swing, can you hear the club? Can you hear the smack of the ball, of the club hitting the ball? And then do you actually hear the ball when it goes off into the air? Making it as real as possible. So then we understand that. So then when you hear Bo talking about daydreaming, what makes it even more real is, and separates it from daydreaming and it becoming real, is, do you feel your limb movement? Do you feel your arm swing? Do you feel that movement, your muscles firing, so to speak, in going in to hit the ball? So that is huge. So that would be the 6th sense, is the limb movement, actually feeling your body go through the motion and hitting the ball. And then the 7th sense is what Bo talked about when it comes to kinesthetic mental imagery, adding a type of emotion to it. And so now that's what I mean by 7 senses. And then we become more rare. So then it becomes more real, where you actually feel the movement. You have an emotion that is attached to it that actually helps you get more hyper focused. So that's kind of it in a sense, as far as like when it comes in mental imagery. That's how you really make it more real, and where, because here's the thing, your brain can't tell the difference if you're physically doing it or mentally doing it.
And the science is showing that, right? I mean, your muscles are still firing, whether or not you're actually on the ski hill in that example that Bo shared, or if you're not. I remember watching, did you guys ever see the movie Rush with about the F1 with Chris Hemsworth and like Niki Lauda, the true story? Great movie, first of all. You guys have to see it. But I remember that there was a scene where the main character was basically laying down with a steering wheel and he was visualizing, I think it was Monaco, and he was visualizing the track. And he was moving the wheel. He was doing every single turn. He was shifting with his feet. I mean, complete immersive. And this was back in the 70s. Like it's, so this has been around for a while. But I remember watching that and being like, you are getting those extra reps in without actually having to be, I mean, the military understands this with simulators and all the rest of it. Like, you're getting those reps in. And then when you're there, I'm assuming your brain's like, oh, I've been here before. I'm comfortable. So it probably also releases a lot of anxiety, a lot of feeling of unsure, or that fear of unknown, because on some deep level, you feel like this is familiar. Is this part of it?
100%.
Yes, 100%. There was a recent movie that was out too, done on Blue Angels, the Blue Angels documentary. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't, no, but
yes, you will actually see them getting mental reps, sitting in a room. You have a main guy who's talking them through every action, and you'll see them off to the side. They got their eyes shut and they got their hand on the on everything, and they're going through and they're doing the mental imagery and making it more real as so to speak. So yeah, this is across all boards when it comes to the mental imagery. Sorry, but what were you going to say?
No, that was a perfect example, but I also want to address the elephant in the room. And that is, okay, this is all great and everything that we're talking about. And that, yes, Blue Angels did this, and, the F1 driver does this. And, how does this actually, pertain to golf? Like, who in golf is actually using this? And this is where I think the rubber meets the road. And this is why this is so important. When you look at, when you look at Tiger Woods, we now know from his book, but also in the clinic, and we talk about this in the book, he used mental imagery a lot. In one clinic that he did, I think it's in 2001, back in pretty much, the early part of his prime, he talks about on Sundays, final round, down the stretch, it looks like on the outside, he is, calm as can be, but he is super nervous on the inside. That's what he's saying. Live to an audience that's listening to him, okay? And he said, when I'm going through my putting routine, this is what I do. I'll take one practice stroke, and then I'm taking a picture of the hole. Kind of like, those old-fashioned, point and shoot cameras, right? And then he's like, I'm taking another look, and I'm taking a picture. I'll step up over the ball, do my routine, get it set up and everything, take one last look, take a picture, bring my eyes back to the ball, and then I say, all right, Tiger, what's a picture like Papa used to say? Guess what? That's mental imagery. But now let's take it back even further than that. Where is the root of this? We all know Jack Nicklaus. We all know Sam Snead. We know who Ben Hogan is. Well, what's the common link for those guys? Well, Jack Nicklaus' childhood coach was Jack Grout. Jack Grout's mentor was a guy named Alex Morrison. Ben Hogan and Sam Snead both shared the same coach, Harvey Pinnock. Who was Harvey Pinnock's mentor? Alex Morrison. One of the all-time best on the LPGA Tour side of things, Mickey Wright, amazing career. Who was her coach? Harry Pressler. Who was Harry Pressler's mentor? Alex Morrison. Well, when you start doing some digging, you're like, who is this Alex Morrison guy? Alex Morrison was the first to write a book in 1940, Better Golf Without Practice. What's fascinating about this book, and this is what I think is so important, because anybody that is just starting out the game, especially a junior golfer and a parent, you definitely want to leverage this, because there was a really cool story in the book. Alex is talking about this comedian, Lou Lore, and Lou could not break 90. He'd been spending so many years practicing, doing everything under the sun, trying to break 90. Well, Alex basically says, all right, we're not practicing physically. We're going to sit down in the chairs, and we're just going to sit here for the next 2 weeks, and we're just going to rehearse the mental 5 more sense swing keys. And so they're just doing mental reps of everything that Alex teaches, right? His first round back, he shoots 87. Now get this. This is without him physically practicing or doing anything physical related. And that's fascinating, because when you go deeper into someone like Sam Snead, we all know who Bob Rotella is, right? Bob's got the all-time classic, Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. But Bob also wrote a book, The Golfer's Mind. And in chapter 2 of that book, Bob tells a detailed story of Sam Snead at one of his seminars. Now, this is fascinating. This is a make or break moment for Bob Rotella. If Sam gets up, which he has been known to do at some of these seminars, and basically say, like, this person's full of it, then that person's career is pretty much done. Well, Bob gets done with this talk. Sam does stand up, but this time Sam, like, makes a statement that totally surprises everybody in the room. He said, we need to listen to this young man because everything he is sharing is very true. And he said, here's why. Back in my prime, when I was playing my best golf, I would go to bed every night before the round, and I would envision myself playing the perfect round of the next day. I'll get through like hole 12 to 15, fall asleep, wake up, feel great, do my normal routine, everything, and I go play a pretty solid round. And that was my key to success. And so you look at that, and you look at someone like Jack Nicklaus, right? I mean, there's no secret that he's talked about visualization being a big key before he hits a shot. Well, what's the common link? They're all doing mental imagery, or what we would prefer, kinesthetic mental imagery.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I mean, like, I think in this day and age, we all understand the power that our mind has to be creating the reality externally. Like it's pretty clear. Whatever it is that you're focusing on seems to manifest, at least in small part, into your life. So on a performance or on like a success aspect, if you're focusing on things that you want, you're going to get more of that through gratitude, all the rest of that. If you're focusing on what you're afraid of, you're probably going to get more of that as well. So this all makes sense. Now, I'm curious, something you guys had mentioned though before is that there's some sort of trigger that's involved in here. So I'm curious, so if I'm laying, okay, obviously we need to get your book, and the book is In the Zone Secrets. I mean, it's all laid out there. Like, it's the system's there, and then we can also, people can reach out to you guys and work with you personally. But let's just say I have a round tomorrow, and I'm waiting for my book to arrive from Amazon. I'm laying in bed tonight. I'm visualizing myself on the course. What else do I need to do to make it more real? Like, do I add a trigger part of my pre-shot routine? And am I doing that in my visualization before every single shot as well? So that when in reality I do that trigger, it kind of accesses that part of my brain? Like, is there something practical that I can do, or I can tell my kid who's got a big tournament tomorrow?
So it's a loaded question because the biggest hang up here for most people is they'll get the custom trigger part down. So I'll share mine personally. My personal trigger is I'll do a waggle of the hands with a deep breath. Okay, that's a custom trigger. It has to be a physical sound, and it's got to be a sound. Well, the deep breath is a sound, physical motion is the waggle of the hands. Okay.
Why does it have to be both of those? Why does it have to be a physical, like, sound and emotion?
It makes a stronger link when it comes to your mind and your muscle sequencing. But more importantly, the next part to the equation is the CPR piece. Now, we all know what the term CPR is. CPR is like,
I don't know what it stands for, but I know what it is.
I will absolutely butcher trying to say it, but we understand that, hey, that's what we do when we perform CPR to bring a person back to life, right?
Sure.
In our equation, what it stands for, and Shannon came up with it, it's pretty awesome. It's called consistent passionate reaction. If you boil it down,
passionate reaction. Okay.
We are bringing CPR into our kinesthetic mental imagery, mental reps, which brings life into the equation. So it comes to life, but more importantly, we're injecting emotion. So CPR, if you really boil it down, is we have to have an emotion in here. Now, where does this all fit in? Remember, we said this is a blend of classical conditioning and operant conditioning, right? But if you just go back to classical conditioning, you have the trigger being, the light or the bell. But what is the reward? Well, it's food, right? So in that scenario, the reward is the food itself. Well, if you don't have the reward, the dog is not going to respond to a light or bell sound unless he has a reward.
Right.
Okay. So in PsychoNeuromuscular training, our bodies have to have a reward, which is why there's a blend of operant conditioning, because we have to have an amazing shot in the equation or a good round at the end of it. But here's the point. Every mental rep that you do, if you're playing tomorrow, for an example, has to have a custom trigger that you physically do. and then you have to have a CPR that follows it. So for CPR, I talk about this in the book, but this is my personal CPR. This is the emotion that I'm bringing into that mental rep itself, is a bull seeing red. I also played linebacker in high school, so it's kind of like, you know, if I'm a middle linebacker and a running back just got the ball, tackle moves out of the way, I shoot the gap, and I'm locked eyes on this running back. I am trying to knock him back off his feet. So there's kind of like some rage that is behind it, right? Kind of like a bull seeing red. The bull doesn't care who's in the stadium. He doesn't care about the guy that's waving the red flag. He doesn't care what the weather is that day. He doesn't care what the soil looks like below his feet. He doesn't care about, music that's playing. The only thing that he's locked in on is the red flag. So there is an emotion and a rage behind a bull charging that red flag. Well, the beauty is when we have an emotion that is brought into the equation, what we're doing is we are simultaneously creating a hyper awareness and focus on our target. Now, we have other CPRs like a sniper's comm. We have some of our tour players, one in particular, won an LPGA tour event. So she knows what her emotions were like that entire final round, and she'll conjure that up after each trigger that she does for each mental rep. So kind of bring this all full circle and show you what it looks like. I know we're covering a lot here, but the way it works is whenever we are playing a round, I would prefer that most people start with their home course because that's the most vivid. It's easy to see each of those holes because they played it so many times. So then just visualize hole number one and, being right behind the ball, see the shot you want to hit, teleport immediately over the ball. You're doing your trigger. So for me, it'd be this right here, wide with the hands, deep breath. And then I am looking physically, but my last look is with the intensity of a bull seeing red. I am making myself conscious doing that. I am bringing that every single time after I do the trigger. Now, what this is doing, if I am consistent with that away from the course, by the time I get to the course and I'm playing, all I'm doing over the ball is trigger only. Why? Because I've trained my body over and over and over to immediately exhibit that emotion that happens right after a trigger. Just like a dog would salivate anytime he would see the light or the bell sound or hear the word treat. So to bring this full circle for anybody that's doubting this right now, I'll prove this really quick. What's your favorite food? All right, we'll use you. What's your favorite food?
Oh, I got to say sushi.
Sushi.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of sushi, man. So there's got to be a place that maybe is your favorite restaurant or type of sushi.
I would say a toro, toro, nigiri, or unagi. So toro's the soft, fatty underbelly of the tuna, or eel. I really like eel. Both just gonna melt like butter.
Now, who makes it the best? What restaurant, or do you make it the best?
When I say I like sushi, I've been to Japan a few times. There's a lot of different places, but I can visualize the place. I'll say there's a place in Victoria called Nubo. So we'll say Nubo has got great unagi.
Can you see that right now in front of you?
100%.
Can you go back to that meal that you had? It was absolutely amazing, right?
100%.
Okay, so now that you're there, you can see it right there on the table in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You got a clear picture of it?
I do, yeah.
So now you got, my wife eats sushi, but I'm going to butcher this. What are the tongs that you have to use to
Chopsticks, man. Chopsticks.
I
would love to see you eat with... we should be eating with tongs. It'd be that much easier.
Yeah.
I don't eat sushi, but I eat hibachi, but
I got you.
Chopsticks. But okay, right? So you got your chopsticks, right?
Yeah, I got them.
Perfect. As you're reaching down and you're grabbing it, do you have a good hold of it?
I do.
Now, as you're bringing it close to your mouth, won't you bring it close to your mouth? How close is it? A couple inches? An inch? You ready to bite it?
Away. Yeah, I can smell it.
Mouth watering?
It actually is.
And it's funny, pretty much everybody that's listening to this that is like maybe a sushi fan, I would guarantee that they are as well. But for those of you that aren't sushi fans like me, my go-to is like a cast iron, medium grilled ribeye.
Well, oh yeah.
Either or, and every time I think of this favorite restaurant in Charleston, or actually Savannah, Georgia, I can see it immediately right in front of my face right now on the plate, and bringing a bite of that, and that makes my mouth water, right? So think of your favorite treat, your favorite food, your mouth waters. So if you can have a response like that, why can you not also train your body to respond in such a way that gets you hyper focused for every shot that you play? That's what was done.
So I've got a slight disconnect or a question here. So first of all, I had no idea, Bo, you come across as a very chill, stoic guy. I didn't realize this undercurrent of rage that's inside of you that you harness to play better golf. I think it's fascinating. You wouldn't like me when you're angry, so don't all of his golfing buddies, be careful. Don't poke him too much, because that ball's going to come out and he's going to play better. But so if I'm sitting up there and I'm visualizing it, I got my custom trigger, and it's a reaction to the shot, I would think it would be something like elation or positivity, but it also sounds like it's not happening after the shot. It's happening before the shot to get you focused. So it's not necessarily like the crowd going crazy and me getting a hole in one. It's actually something that dials me right in to be in the here and now, the present moment, and 100% focused on target, caveman golf, as you guys say, which I love. So it's that. So whatever it is that we use to get focused. Am I understanding that correct?
Yeah. And the trigger needs to be also, just a real brief, the trigger needs to be something that you don't have to use something else. Like we've had somebody say, all right, I'm going to take and use my golf club and wipe my hand down the golf club as my trigger. Well, then you got to have your golf club with you wherever you go if you wanted to get mental reps in. Make it simple. If you want to do a trigger, make it simple, like squeezing your hands like as you hold it, or like what Bo said, the waggle or something like that. But then the CPR, like what we were just talking about, that added emotion. But then the reason why we do the mental imagery when we add that in there is you're teaching your body and mind to go right into the very next thing that you're getting ready to do, which is what? Play golf, play whatever that is. But then there's a twofold thing. What we're doing is we're setting you up for performance out on the golf course, but also we're teaching your body how to even practice better, learn things faster better by using the mental imagery on top of that, and triggering that body. So for example, you would do, instead of doing that trigger in the mental imagery and your CPR and everything one time, and then you're getting all these hits in, no. For every single hit that you do when you do your mental rep, you're doing it. How long is it going to take you? 10 seconds, 5 seconds? So let's say 10 seconds at the most, to go through your trigger, your CPR mental imagery of the swing. You're getting your trigger done every single time. That is you building up your bank account in your brain, or what I call your brain account, to trigger to go into the zone, so to speak. You're just building that up over time, because you're getting those mental reps in over and over. You're getting that trigger CPR, trigger CPR, trigger CPR with your mental imagery. So then when you go out on the course, we also say do your trigger CPR mental imagery in your pre-shot routine, but then when you come up to address the ball, you're just doing trigger only, and your body's gonna automatically react to go into that mental hyper-focused state right before you hit the ball.
That makes a lot of sense. So the CPR, is that always target focused?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Otherwise, you have no emotion attached to anything.
Yeah. Is rage or anger a common one? Or what have you found? What's the emotion? Like
Some can be happy, excited. We have clients that are just like happy, excited. We have others that, we talk about like a sniper's calm aggression.
What do you mean a sniper's calm? What does that mean? Like the target?
Explain that one.
Yeah, it's like an aggressive calm. A sniper, you think of, we kind of picture like a sniper in the heat of the battle. There's shots going on and they're totally on their target. Again, it's a target focus. It's on that target every single time, and they're just boom, that's all they're doing. But they're totally focused on the target, not with all the chaos that's going around. And so we use that like an aggressive calm, for a sniper.
And then you say an aggressive because that's the emotional response around that.
Yeah.
So you always have to emotional. Oh, amazing, guys. Listen, you're right, Bo, that we covered a lot. Shannon, incredible stuff here. If I'm listening to this and I'm a parent, what advice would you give to a parent that's got a kid in golf and they're trying to kind of steer them and help them get focused and play better golf and enjoy it better? Like any kind of lasting advice or anything that you would give specifically to that parent?
I would love to tackle this and Bo, because here's the thing. It is a parent's responsibility to be a parent. Okay. And here's the thing. Keep them, like we talk about green light, yellow light, and red light state of the mind. And all that means is red light state, you've lost control, so to speak. Yellow light state, you're kind of losing control. Green light is when you're in a flow state. So I would say for a parent, it is important that, if we're walking with them during a round or anything like that, we're playing with them, one of your main goals is to keep them in the green light state. Make sense? That makes it so much easier. And then here's the other thing for a parent, your ride home, don't even talk about golf. Forget golf. They need time and space to recover. You know what I'm saying? And then again, green light state. Because here's the thing. You don't want the golfer, or if you're playing any other sport, you don't want them to be like, okay, my parent only loves me when I perform. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah.
Then that helps them. Oh man, that's when the parent becomes the hero. It's because, hey, you know what? I've loved watching you play today. And they could have had the worst round of their life. Right? So then what kind of bond is that bringing? Again, you're making them not dread the ride home. You're making them, enjoying it and so to speak. So I just kind of wanted to speak into that because I know that parents is where your main where you're wanting to take this and your goal and who you want to respond to. But then again, out on the course, oh, that was a bad shot. Shake it off. Well, wait a minute. How do you shake it off?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm going to add to something, Shan, because I think it's so profound what you're saying right now. Is that so? We're talking about triggers and we're talking about the emotional responses. We're talking about conditioning here. So let's just think about this, parents, for a second. If every time as a kid I get in the car and I get critiqued by my parents, that's going to be creating. And obviously that doesn't feel good. And if on some level I'm associating my sense of worth or value with my performance out there, well, then guess what? I'm probably not going to want to get in the car very often with my parents because that's going to create this trigger where it's like all I get is critiqued and I'm always getting criticized and my love is conditional. And so you're probably going to create an avoidance in your kid if that is the trigger that you're doing. Like it's all very much so related. Am I understanding this correct?
Oh, you nailed it.
Interesting. Bo, any last words of wisdom then to kind of help guide a junior golfer or anybody that's, has a love for the game and is looking to just like kind of dial it in that much more?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that a lot of parents are probably wondering right now is like, how would the system help my junior golfer, right? And I'll say this, look, if this can help kids as young as 9, 10, 11 years old use this, trust me, they can definitely benefit from this. And I know it seems like we went a lot into some of the deep science part of it, but I promise you, it is so much more simpler than what we kind of describe it as, because all you need to do is come up with a trigger, come up with an emotion, and then just do that over and over when they're doing mental reps, and then the results will speak for themselves. Now, the second thing is, I have seen this firsthand, what Shannon and what you, Ryan, just talked about. I'll never forget, playing junior golf with this kid. And he actually went to play at a very, very big D1, one of the top 5 programs in the nation. But because of the way his parents was, especially his dad toward him, unfortunately, he's not playing on the PGA Tour. And I really believe he had the game to play on the PGA Tour. But because it wasn't his love for the game, I'm talking about the junior golfer, it was kind of his parent and his dad living his life through the junior golfer. It eventually led to him just quitting the game for good. And every now and then he'll play occasionally in like an amateur event, but it basically, took all the love and passion that he had as a junior away, and now he resents playing the game, unfortunately. So it's super important to do exactly what Shane was talking about. You got to have that separation between I am a parent, and then my junior's working with a coach, well, let the coach be the coach. And then
Yeah.
you as a
100%.
parent just be the support system that they need and just love them through it. And I think that's key.
Yeah.
That's huge.
I have
And
one last thing. So
yeah, Shannon.
what are you thinking between the shots if you're a parent to your kid? Whatever you want. Don't talk golf. You're trying to keep them. What you're doing is you're literally taking them out of the situation, whether it was a bad shot, a good shot, or whatever. You're taking them out of the situation. Here's the other thing. Another way to keep you can keep your son or daughter in a green light state, walking between holes. You know, let's say they just hit a bad shot and then went into the water, and then they go in and they hit again and it goes out of bounds, and then again, you know, it's the worst hole they've ever played in their life, right? And then you start thinking about, okay, think about a great place where they've been at. It could be a Christmas Eve night. Hey, do you remember Christmas Eve 2 years ago? What? And then they start thinking about that. They have totally flushed out that bad shot, right? And they're ready to play the next shot. And guess what? The parent's the hero.
And at the end of the day, that's what we all just want to be the hero. Guys, incredible. In the zone mental training, what's the best way for people? Like, I'm sold. Parents, we're sold. We're like, okay, how do we get the system? How do we get the book? What's the best way to find you guys?
2 places. One, they can go directly to our website, inthezone.secrets.com. You can get the book through us, and it'll be an autographed copy from both Shannon and I. If you want to go through Amazon, you can get it there. You'll pay a little bit more for it, obviously. And so you can get it there as well. So we have 2 locations. US, obviously, go to inthezone.secrets.com. We can also do Canada, Mexico. But if you're international, we prefer that you go through Amazon and do it that way. So that's where you can find us.
It's fantastic. And something that's coming to my mind right now is, as a parent, so yeah, I get the system for, you know, little Jimmy or Sally, but I realize that I actually probably need the system as well to do mental imagery to be the best dad that I can be on the course, so I can visualize myself as he's visualizing him on the course. That's great. I need to visualize myself being the best supportive parent and, you know, having my own custom triggers to deal with my own anxiety while he's on the course. And yeah, so I guess everybody can benefit from the parent and the kids.
Absolutely.
Awesome, guys.
This and life.
Yeah, right? Business and life, 100%. This has been wonderful. Shannon, Bold, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for all the insights and wisdom. This is really going to help a lot of people.
It's fun for us.
This is awesome.